usual, we'll start with just a few minutes of silence. And again, whether we call it our awareness or our spirit, our mindfulness, has many abilities way beyond what we normally use or pay attention to. As we get still, there's an inner source in us that can actually generate thoughts in our brain. Our brain thinking, what we normally call thinking, is pretty much like the screen on the computer. It's getting its input from something, usually the past, but if not the past through external observation in the present, but it's doing the processing like a computer. When we learn what stillness really is, we can find a place in us that's behind the brain and emotions and body. And as we sit in it, it's absolutely still thought-wise. Yet from there, thoughts arise in the brain, and we can watch. And it can vary infinitely. One day it may be going on and on about some issue in my brain. Another day it may be memories. It may be imagining something I want to do or create. I mean, but the whole point of mindfulness is to become more familiar with ourselves, who we are as the space that things arise from, rather than the usual of identifying with what arises. And in short, one very helpful thing in this is I have been programmed by life, by experiences, by teachings from people. And when thoughts from the past arise, I will tend to think, I am bad, or I am wrong, or I shouldn't think that way, I shouldn't feel this. And we equate those old thoughts with me. They're not me. They're experiences I've had. They're ways I reacted the best I knew how at that time, but they're not me. And there's a peace when I can get behind that and say, yes, there's a thought, there's a feeling coming up. It's just a thought. It's just a feeling. It's not me. And then that extends to blessing the world, because I can look at everybody else and say, that's not you. It's just a program, a thought, a feeling arising in you. And then I can be at peace and wish you well, because if I knew who I really am behind that thought as the source of my life, I know you're that too. So let's just take a moment and find that space and see what arises. I've said before, it's so simple. There's really nothing to teach. And then I try every week because I like to do this. One of the very most fundamentals is learning to always go within to our own inner space first. And if I go there, I will see that anything else I think is teaching me is merely a pointer, saying, look there within you, listen to that within you. And I found in general that I offer that, and it usually lasts about 10 seconds. And we're off into, well, so-and-so says, and they said, and that book said, and this said, and you're back out of your mind again. So today's little topic, I'm going to call it authorship. Author and authority are the same word. And it boils down to who's writing the script for my life, for how, what, when, where, why I think and do and act. And just as we can get distracted intellectually with that book or that teacher, what we don't recognize is we get distracted 1,000 times a day by something happening in the world around us. And an old program of reaction comes up to it, and now the author of my life for that scene, that segment, is my past experience, my reaction to it, my fears, my judgments, my pre-made stories of what it means, and the way it should be, and it shouldn't be that way. And constantly, all day long, we give our life away to the world, to another person. You know, for in a relationship, that's a powerful learning situation because we give it away almost constantly when we're in a relationship if we're not awake, if we're not aware. When we are staying in present awareness of ourself, our deeper inner self, everything becomes a beautiful experience, basically. We see the world around us. Yeah, man, it is friggin' crazy at times, maybe most of the time. But I see it. It's not yanking me around, and I can weave and dance through it. And if I'm in a relationship, I'm aware of the interplay, the very strong dynamics of energy exchange, but I'm aware of it. And I can agree, yeah, we've agreed to share this energy this way. So it's all right, but it's not yanking me around. It's not holding me back. It's not defining me. So the whole key or goal of mindfulness is taking authorship of our own life again. And of course, the word authority is when I deliberately relinquish my being the author of my life and say, oh, you're an authority. You tell me how to live my life. And very quickly from mindfulness, you can see the idea of authority is a very ugly and just sick idea. The real sense behind it is if we know someone who's had many good experiences, and we know they're a good person by our own experience of them, yes, I will listen to your advice because that's saying, you've been there, done that. I've never climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, so I would talk to you about mountain climbing rather than reading something on Facebook before I go out. But that's the only right use of authority, is looking to them to author my life because I respect their experience and their own awareness, their own intelligence. And yeah, most of us here, all of us here, most of us in the circles we've come to know are a lot more awake than the world at large. But as a rule, humans, including us, we're being programmed from the time we were born to respond to an outer authority. And at first it was simply, don't stick that key in the electric socket. Well, you know what? All three of my kids ended up sticking that key in the electric socket. And guess what? None of them do that anymore. Because They didn't pay any attention to my authority, but their own experience taught them real quick. Uh, oh, there's a reason Dad said that. And after that, I think they listened a little more, sometimes, once in a while. So, a large part of awakening is finding the remnants of where we had allowed ourselves to be programmed from birth on up. You know, all those years of our parents before school telling us why we were right or wrong, what was right or wrong, and then school and all those people telling us what's right or wrong and what we should want to be, what we should do, etc. And then throw in all kinds of spiritual teachings we may have adopted or come across. Again, I can't emphasize it enough. There's a space in me that knows. It knows what truth is. It knows how to parse information coming in from outside. It knows how to parse it mindfully, intelligently. And mindfulness itself is about learning to just stay centered in that awareness all the time while I interact with my world and do the things I need to do to live. And yet, I don't. If we are self-honest, I doubt if we spend 1% of our day centered on our inner being. We keep getting pulled that quickly back out or into the past or into a teaching. And so the kind of the thought I would want to offer this week is, what do I think about that? To learn when a reaction comes up to the world or an idea comes up that it's like this or it's like that, to just say, no, wait a moment. Let me just get still. Let me get to the place before thought. And then when I do, it's that mystical place. It's neither thought nor emotion, yet it has something. It has a thought, it has a feeling, but they're not like the human level thought and feeling. And if I just sit there and feel that space, now a thought will arise about the situation, and a feeling may arise to go with it. You know, what's going on in Gaza is horrible. And I can list off a whole number of reasons, but if I just stop and go deep, you feel we just came here to have this adventure, and look what they're doing with that. That's the horrible. There's no need for it on either part. That, come on, just remember we just came here to share in this amazing adventure. And it's like deep within those kinds of thought feelings begin to emerge, which explain all the rules that get created, like it's not nice to commit genocide, it's not nice to starve people or torture them, but it comes from a place deeper than the rules of society and spirituality. And we're only free to be the author of our own experience when we've learned to return again to that place and live from there. Then, the more we become familiar with that, the more we hear things and we say, oh yeah, they're pointing to this, they're pointing to that, but I know in me what it is they're pointing to. And my awareness of that grows then for myself. If you read about any teacher or person you respect in this world, and can read something to get a sense of how they live, you begin to hear their connection to their inner passion. And the first thing to keep in mind when you read, we're all humans. So no matter who it is, They also have their dark side because they're human. But for example, if I read about Martin Luther King Jr., and I get this sense of what the heck motivated him to stand up. I mean, of all the people being oppressed in this country, in this world, what motivated him? What gave him the passion to begin his movement? Or who was the lady on the bus? I just saw it. Yes. You know, what motivated? And like, I look outward now to teachers to hear their inner being and then in turn find that same inner being. Where is that in me? And if we use the scriptures, I love the Gospels, the four Gospels. It's like, for one, Jesus said, I always do what I see God doing. Well, where did he see that? Where is that in me? And he conveyed that ability to some extent to his disciples and told them, you should be doing these things too. What did he convey? Where is it in me that I can pray? Because he says, if you turn to me and ask, I will be there with you and teach you and empower you. Where is that in me where I can receive that kind of an understanding? You know, because really the Gospels are very short in terms of all the words in this world, and we can read them and reread them, and I do, but yet there may be, you know, like two sentences where you feel it when you read it, like, wow, something's going on there. But you can't keep studying those words on that page and get it. It's about, what's that trying to show me in here? What's in me that's connected to that? Or what's in me that's hearing that and getting excited about it? So again, it's just all about developing an ongoing daily moment-to-moment practice of more and more saying, wait, there's some words, but wait, where am I listening from? There's a reaction to a scene. Wait, where's that coming from? And it can be done in a microsecond. It does not require meditating for 20 minutes every time. It's just like learning to turn the camera instead of looking out there. Now it just looks in here for its input. It's instant. You know, Bruce Lee, the martial artist, taught his students how to be present so in mid-kick they could redirect it. Whereas every other teacher was teaching, practice your kick and follow through. He's saying, no, you're quicker than that. You can change in mid-punch or mid-block. You're that fast if you listen within. Get in the habit of listening is what he taught. And people said he was crazy, but he did it. He demonstrated it. My point is, it's the life we're meant to be. You know, we were jabbering about different little things earlier, like telepathy, and I would call it empathy also. I've used it for a long time. You're listening to somebody and their words are this and that. And yeah, maybe their words make sense. Maybe their logic makes sense. But something in here is like, they're pissed and they're about something. And in some cases, it's been months would go by. And finally, whatever it was erupts. And it's like, yeah, that little sense I got, which just said, be careful, don't buy all that. Everybody's like, aren't they such a great guy or great woman and great person, and listen to their fine language. We get these senses. And we've been taught strange things, like give them the benefit of the doubt. Why? The alternative with mindfulness is just watch and listen. Don't either judge or doubt, but stay open and hear, listen, because you may hear things very different than the words. Or you may see a scene that looks like an attack, and suddenly you realize, no, the one that's acting the victim is the one inciting all the drama and driving the other person friggin' nuts, or threatening the children, or whatever. And it's like you see. And in that sense, I very much believe in telepathy. And I've had other experiences. One of my fun ones was one night when I was starting group in Erie, just out of nowhere, I said, well, I have no idea why, but tonight we're going to talk about penguins. Well, a long-term member had brought a new friend to group that night, and the new girl jumped up and squealed. She says, I can't believe it. We were just talking about penguins on the way over here tonight. So strange things happen, and they can be fun, but they can also be important information. They can be like, don't step backwards because I'm going to trip. But I've had that in many cases. Mm-hmm. I've had it, I set my coffee cup down and get an image of a moment later, my elbow knocking it off the corner of the table. Mm-hmm. If I pay attention and simply move the cup 1 foot over, I avoid all that drama. Simple, very simple examples, but the point is we can live all day long connected to our source, which is connected to the universe, which knows everything. And I do not so much believe in predestination, as in, here's a pattern, it's in motion. And you can see it's in motion, so you can see what the next step of that motion is going to be. And it can warn us, for good or bad. Like, yes, do go that way. No, don't go that way, because of the energy that's in motion. How far that extends, I don't know. Some prophecies seem to go thousands of years, but I'm only worried about getting through the day the best I can as far as applying mindfulness goes. The rest is fun musing for leisure time. But on an ongoing basis, when I go to run that chainsaw, I check first. Keep me right. Let me look. Let me see. Oh yeah, I didn't notice that dead limb up there. And when that tree starts to fall, that limb's going to hit that tree, and I'm right underneath where that's going to happen. I think I'll move to the other side of the tree to make a cut. It's like it gives us so much more information than we normally bother to use every day, because we're so used to looking out first, or running by old programs and rules of life first, and not checking for a fresh update every second. Our ego or animal self that likes to run the show with the brain gets extremely pissed when we start practicing this. I had another friend at group, and he says, well, I have to ask about every damn thing. I'm like, yeah, Richard, you do. And he thought that was so irritating that he had to be open to spirit for everything, especially getting along with his wife. He had some issues there. But what's so terrible about realizing who I am is first this inner source of life, the innermost stream of life that some guys have said is available to us. What's wrong with re-identifying ourselves as being that and learning to live as that and from that, and then making all of my outer and past thoughts secondary? So that's the challenge of mindfulness. And the thought right now is, can I develop a practice of whenever a happy thought or unhappy thought comes roaring up, to just stop and say, where's that coming from? Where's my real self? What does my real self think about that? You know, it's like, again, it's fun to think about telepathy. Okay, I thought about it, now what? But if I think about it and say, where is that in me where those things happen? Now I'm setting about becoming it or using it or doing it. See the difference? But our brain is so trained to think about it and then leave it as a thought. Whereas mindfulness says, no, it got your attention, go in and find the root of it. Find its expression in you, your version of it, your understanding of it. So that's the basics of today's thoughts. Your thoughts.
I hadn't really thought before that one of my own past experiences could be a thought that's distracting me.
Explain. I'm not getting what you mean. Oh, all right. You didn't realize a past experience could be a distraction.
Right.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I heard you.
Yeah, because I often when I'm talking with somebody say, well, my experience could have changed a lot between then and now.
And what the situation really was
Right.
then and now.
I think I've brought up before, we've talked about the 95% unconscious. So the human body, an average person, take that for what it is, acts 95% out of their subconscious, not acting out of their inner self. And typically that 95%, that default programming is coming from a past experience or thinking to the future. It's the 5% is when you're focused on the now, when you're present centered, but the past experiences come up, or if you want to do after this mindfulness session, that's not living in the present moment. Right. That's letting an outside influence change your internal state of being in a sense. And you mentioned like watching what your thoughts, and there's a common meditation practice. I think it's actually just called the Watcher, where you just sit and you just, as an outside observer, think what comes in your head. Laugh about it.
Yeah, you laugh. Keep laughing.
Okay, that's still coming. Like I'm still thinking about that. Like wasn't I thinking about that yesterday and the day before? Like unprocessed information or distractions from the past or future.
And we don't realize how true that is. That because they occupy our awareness. Now we're not in our awareness. We're in that thought form. Mm-hmm. You know? And it's obsessing us. It's blinding us. It's like when you go deep, being present takes on an entirely different meaning. We start learning it with like being present, feeling, seeing, hearing exactly what's here, but we're still out there. Being present means being lucidly aware of my inner being, my natural self. I'm present with it. I'm present as it. And then that is how I'm engaging with life. And it has nothing to do with what I'm doing. At 1 second, I may be present with it, looking at my thoughts. In another second, I may be present with doing dishes, as you like to use, or whatever. But being present means I'm lucidly aware of and using my inner awareness. And then it will direct me what I need to put my attention on out here. I can't pay attention to everything out here. We can sit there and drive ourselves nuts trying to be present and aware of that light and that window, and there's a bug up there. And real quickly, we're back in mental presence, and we're not in here anymore. because we're trying to be present with the world. But when we're truly present, it's absolutely still, and it directs us. Like, well, pay attention to Moo. She's got something to offer right now. So, all right. What do you think, Moo?
I got a kind of question about the predestined part, because I mean the whole Bible is prophecies of predestined people. I mean, even Jesus said that, you know, to Peter, "You're gonna deny me 3 times."
Mm-hmm.
So the predestined part, if these people were predestined and being mindful at the same time, did they really have any control of the outcome?
Yeah. That's kind of more what I meant when I said I don't believe in it. Maybe a better word would be I don't understand it. So I don't waste time thinking, because it's an unanswerable puzzle to me. And the other question is, if Peter had been more mindful, would he have caught himself going to deny and stopped? Or, I mean, it's like you can look at that in an infinite number of ways.
Yeah, but but let me also too, Isaiah was prophesied, Jesus was prophesied before they were even born. The prophecies of what they would accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
So that predestined is like they were meant to do that. So it's like I feel like a lot of times people are like, where are you going to be at the moment? Like wherever God tells me to be,
Yeah.
I'll be where I'm supposed to be. So it's like, yeah, you can be mindful, and I think being mindful is very helpful spiritually. It's definitely a stress reliever. And it helps you become more calm and peaceful, with the out appearance.
Right.
But can that even prevent your predestination?
Yeah, and that's why I said I prefer to use it just in the moment, to listen, what's it directing me to do now? Because I don't know what the outcomes or where it's going. I don't need to know anymore. It's just, right now I'm doing this, and when I get up from here, I will do whatever I'm directed to do then. And maybe it's all set up. I don't know.
Definitely makes it more peaceful.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
So, yeah, that's how I resolve that, Michael.
I think of Jesus' teaching that's like pretty much directly speaking to mindfulness of, I think it was Matthew. Don't worry about what you're going to eat, what you're going to wear, don't worry about tomorrow. Seek ye first the kingdom of God. Go inside first. Once that's there, okay, you want to grow some food, you want to eat, but don't think that you can plan all your days ahead and then stick to that plan and never look inside and adjust or update, just run this program that you've been given.
Yeah.
And it's like the opposite of being consistent, I would say. I know people who are really consistent, they from 20 years old, they decided the world is this way and I'm going to be this way in it, and they don't update their programming ever. It's like they've decided that mindfulness is a bad thing, and to be present and to adjust to new circumstances is scary. And, and it goes against what they believe. Was I wrong in my 20s? So should I, do I keep doing what I've been doing so that for the sake of convincing myself that I've always been right, or should I be present in this moment and decide what is right and do it, regardless of what I decided 10 years ago was right?
Yeah, exactly. And like 60 years ago, a whole bunch of young people decided to lock their brains down, like you're saying, and they're running our world now. All based on past algorithms of crap, but not open for re-examination or modification. And
And it's almost like a snowball rolling down a hill. It's like they've decided the snowball is the most important thing, but it's picking up all this junk, all this accumulation over the years that has made the snowball like this giant force that it's so much harder. So it was easy to stop when the snowball was this big. And rolling down a hill, you could just put your foot in front of it and stop it. And now we have this giant boulder of a mountain of a snowball that's picking up more and more and destroying everything in its path. And to stop it is like, wow.
So our personal trick is to find our own snowball in us, where we have built our ideas of how it is. And again, when, the ego is so afraid of having its framework shaken or destroyed. But when you go behind into our being, there's a reason we built everything we built. And if you can get to the original reason, you can make a new expression of it that works better. For example, the idea of vengeance arises from our animal self. And like, I'm going to get them for that. But behind it, if you go deeper, it wants to eliminate the source of that problem so that problem doesn't occur again. So the simplistic animal way is kill the bastard. That'll take care of it. It'll never happen again. But when you see behind that powerful feeling that jumps up, oh, I want to change so that cannot happen again. Now I can go about it being guided by my mindfulness intelligently. So everything in us, we're not destroying it. We're transforming it. We're upgrading it. We're asking our higher intelligence within to reform it for us. And that, to me, gives ease to the ego, which is scared to death of losing its structure that's been keeping it safe or successful, letting it survive.
I think Pythagoras said, in anger, you should refrain from both speech and action.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he's talking about. When you have those strong physical emotions, it's good to understand them, but sit, recenter yourself before making any judgments, before taking
Right.
any action.
And that's what's not taught. I mean, people are taught to repress their anger, but it's still there boiling. Society is not teaching children and each other to go within to the place of peace and see what the solution is without destruction. You know, it's like that step just doesn't exist in world teaching as a rule. True, it's not good just to lash out in anger blindly, but find out, why am I angry? What do I want to change here? How can I go about changing it? You're not denying the energy that's coming up for the situation. You know, and as Jesus demonstrated, sometimes it may be a little bit volatile, you know, like in the temple, where he let it loose. But I'm sure he did that very mindfully. He was aware, all right, this has just gone too far. I'm going to show these guys just how ridiculous what they're doing really is. Watch this. Over goes the tables, out go the animals. But you can do action strongly empowered without blindly being driven by anger. You see the difference. And again, it's not about repressing the energy of our life. It's using it with awareness and then using it intelligently.
It's funny, I read that passage again recently, and I noticed, at least in the translation I had, he first drove the animals out.
Yes.
He made a thing like a whip,
Mm-hmm.
and drove the animals out. He turned over the tables that had the money,
Mm-hmm.
the money changers. And then he went to the people who were selling doves and asked them to take them outside.
Yeah.
I just thought that progression was a lot less helter-skelter, blow
Yeah,
off steam.
no.
It was a very methodical thing, yeah.
Yeah, like I say, I think he knew what he was doing on purpose, you know. He was doing an awesome demonstration. That does not happen in the temple every day, you know. Woke him up. So that's our trick, is to, it can be scary. I don't know how much any of you have played with it, but when you start letting the deeper anger that's in us, the dark side people call it. It's only dark because we haven't brought light to it. I mean, that becomes a duh once you look in there. But it's like, I'm afraid of this anger in me. I'm afraid of this lust in me. I'm afraid of whatever that comes up. And something in my lifetime has taught me you're wrong if you have those thoughts or feelings, or you're wrong to express this or that. And it can be scary to initially let yourself begin to look at it and just get peaceful and say, well, what does that really want? How can that be expressed peacefully? And I don't know, have you ever experienced that scariness of looking in there and you find a place that you just kept bottled away because it's so angry or hateful, and we need to look in them all to gain a stable, ongoing peace.
I think that's the essence of a lot of emotions. When you feel an emotion, it's usually rooted with something deeper within you. So if somebody says something and you get angry, or sadness, any type of emotional response is typically linked to a past experience or a fear of a future one. So centering is disconnecting, not ignoring those emotions, but understanding those emotions, disconnecting from them, and then looking as like an outside observer in a sense of where it stemmed from. Why is a word triggering an emotional response, or whatever the case may be? But it's very, I don't want to say impossible, but very difficult, or you're not going to get to your true center if you're allowing emotions to come into your mind and into your judgment in a sense, or your consciousness.
Or if you're repressing them, if you're vaguely aware they start to come up, and you just, it's not right to be that angry or that hateful. And mindfulness says, yeah, go ahead and, go on down in there and walk around in it and see the depth of that feeling and how hateful it is, how angry it is, how greedy it is, whatever. Take it to the max internally and watch how it can be transformed. And it's amazing what can be transformed,
Sometimes maybe Spirit can provide a way for us to act it out in a safe way, but we're still acting it out.
I think that's an idea of inner alchemy, taking those types of, I know the term negative is subjective, but taking negative emotions and turning them into a different form of expression, something that's more positive than the negative side of it.
I think of our emotions as one of the best teachers we have in this world. Is that it's a pointer to some truth. If you feel angry and your response is to lash out and to violently hit things and scream at things and stuff, and you never reflect on what was the cause of the anger, you'll get into a program of when that thing comes up, whatever triggered that anger, you're even quicker to just lash out and everything. But our emotions are super powerful in that it's tied very closely to memory. You'll never forget the most angry you've ever been, the most joyful you've ever been. The more powerful the emotion, the stronger the memory of it is, which makes it a really good teacher. Because if you just read something and there's no emotion to it or anything, you're likely to forget it very quickly. But to go through an experience that you feel through your whole body and your heart's racing and is going to stick with you longer. And if you really want to learn, you can just reflect on those times of the last time you got really angry and just sit there and look, well, what made me so angry? What was it? And what was he attacking? What was the external thing that's just a trigger to something that was going on inside? And to look inside, you say, well, I've never had confidence in myself, and so this person, and I'm trying to build it, but this person's undermining my confidence, and so like that made me really angry because I want to, but to understand that, well, my confidence doesn't depend on that person, or whatever, to learn a lesson from it is to almost guarantee you will not have that same outburst, violent reaction you had last time, because you understand, someone, oh, this is the part where in the past I might have got really angry, but now I know that, like, the thing, whatever it is just, it's like an understanding of, like, what caused. But without those powerful emotions, you might take years or lifetimes to learn that lesson.
I've used it, maybe not with you guys, just before I came here at 67 years old, speaking of taking a lifetime, I became extremely angry at a friend. It took me 2.5 months of being extremely angry. And it all boiled down to a feeling that I was being rejected. And when I finally got clear on what the feeling was, the anger just dissolved. It just felt like, in my mind, it just looked like it turned into snowflakes and just fell to the ground around me. And it was done. And it, once or twice since, the thought would come back up that I could just see it immediately and say, no, I'm not being rejected. But yeah, you're right. It had sat there and in hindsight had caused me problems in relationships all my life, because it would periodically come up as an anger because I was perceiving something as rejecting me. So yeah, that's why I say we have to be willing to go into and experience the feeling of those emotions in depth and truly keep asking until we get an answer that's sane and provides a solution to the feeling.
It's really challenging in some senses too, because your subconscious that brings up these emotions and responses, a majority of that subconscious is programmed from the age of 7 or less.
Yeah.
So the time when you're from 0 to 7 years old is when the majority of your subconscious programming is done.
Yeah.
And how many of us can remember specific details of when we were that entire time?
There's another layer to that trick. The brain in most humans completely rewires itself at age 7. So it does not keep conscious memories of most things from before that time, but they're all in the subconscious. So we've actually lost lucid memory of what programmed us,
So, yeah.
and it's deep in the subconscious, so it takes this work to bring it back out and uncover it. Yeah.
But I think, like what Sean said, the emotions are a really good way to look at those, to discover that subconscious programming of, oh, I got angry yesterday. Why did I get angry? And just really take it back to, it's not, oh, this person said something or somebody, any external influence. It's like, why did anger arise inside of me? And you can use those as really good lessons, your emotions as lessons to try to uncover that.
I read a great quote by Brother Roger from Today, the founder of Today. And he said, our childhood is the loom on which we weave every new experience after it. So our childhood sets this foundation of, okay, when I act this way, this person yells, and it instills all these responses and emotions, and you feel that, and then the whole rest of your life it is like trying to weave, every experience that happens is like, you can't help but put it on that loom.
Fit it to
it has to.
Good analogy. Yeah.
Brother Rogers.
I've had to let go of some emotions without knowing where they came from. And then it'll turn up the memory. It will turn up and make yourself clear sometimes.
Yeah. It's never a nice linear rational process either, like you've just pointed out.
Yeah.
Once we say yes to our inner spirit and say, I want to get this sorted, we're going to begin. If somebody makes us feel we have no confidence, we'll get 10 people a day coming up telling us we're a piece of crap, And the angrier we get, the less we'll understand about it. And then, like you say, one day it's just like, I don't know. And then a week later, the thought comes and we get it. It always, in our intellectual terms, is vague. It's never going to be pretty or clear cut, but it always gets there.
And sometimes, if you've ever had like a kind of Christ consciousness experience, if you tripped on mushrooms, if you had an intense spiritual experience, anytime you've ever kind of stepped outside of time for a moment, God exists outside of time. Time is just a limitation that it's useful for us to use in this body, in this physical life. But if you've ever stepped outside of it and you see how it's not as linear as we create it in our minds, you can kind of play with it. Like Bart said, sometimes you let go of some emotion. I don't understand it, but I will someday. So I'm just going to go on with a better reaction or whatever. I'm going to leave it a little bit of a mystery for now and accept that one day I will understand that emotion and just start living like that day has already come, because time isn't really that linear. I guess it has already come. If you're coming to that decision to say, I'm going to accept it, I will be healed from this someday. I don't know how it'll happen, but it's going to happen. And for right now, I'm going to pretend like it already did. It's an interesting little trick to, Bug's point of, it'll come, or it won't. But either way, I'm going to learn from it as if it already came.
I read something yesterday about the new science and what it can teach us about faith. The new science. And then I kind of realized that once upon a time, the new science, the old science was the new science. We're always sure, now we know, now we got it, now we can look at God as a cosmic being. In a sense, it's way, way, way more outside of our understanding than even that.
All right, I'm going to wrap us up here, and then we can hang if you want. But just leave it with the thought for the week of, let me get behind what's arising in my thought or feeling and ask, look, see, where's it coming from? What does it want? Make it a new habit to do that. To say, make it easy 1,000 times a day. And all will be well. Thank you all.